All right. So, welcome. My name is Pastor Eric from Ottawa First Assembly in Ottawa, Illinois. And today we are going to be looking at Ezra and Nehemiah. Pardon me as I adjust my camera here a little bit. We're going to be looking at Ezra and Nehemiah, Ezra chapter 1 and 2, and then Nehemiah chapter 1. And pardon me as I share this with my with Facebook here on our page. There we go. All right. Now, so what we're doing here is, you can let me know if you can't hear me, or if you can hear me. That would be great. So let me put my microphone a little up closer there. So, all right. So the reason for this is because I am doing a new series uh, on Sunday for the next 7 weeks. Okay, and what it is it's a series titled "The New Exodus," and it's about the books of Ezra and Nehemiah. So what I'm trying to do here is kind of give some historical and some cultural information that will then allow you to better understand the message on Sunday. So let's go ahead and read Ezra 1 and part of Ezra 2. I'm not going to read all of Ezra 2 because a lot of it is just numbers and letters and so on and so forth. Now, this should be posted after I'm done, so you can watch it anytime. Let's go ahead and just go ahead and start with Nehemiah chapter 1. And then we'll go ahead and talk about things a little bit. Here we go. Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 1, the words of Nehemiah. And I'm reading from the New American Standard. Here we go. The words of Nehemiah. Now it happened in the month of Chislev in the 12th year, while I was in Susa, the capital, that Hanai, one of my brothers, and some men from Judah came, and I asked them concerning the Jews who had escaped and survived the captivity, and about Jerusalem. They said to me, the remnant there in the province who survived captivity are in great distress and reproach, and the wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates are burned with fire. When I heard these words, this is Nehemiah speaking. When I heard these words, I sat down and wept and mourned for days, and I was fasting and praying before the God of heaven. I said, I beseech you, Lord, O God of heaven, the great and awesome God, who who preserves the covenant and loving kindness for those who love him and keep his commandments. Let your ear now be attentive and your eyes open to the prayer of your servant, which I am praying before you now, day and night, on behalf of the sons of Israel, your servants, confessing the sins of the sons of Israel which have sinned against you. I and my father's house have sinned. We have acted very corruptly against you, and not kept the commandments, nor the statutes, nor the ordinances which you commanded your servant Moses. Remember the word which you commanded your servant Moses, saying, if you are unfaithful, I will scatter you among the peoples. But if you return to me, keep my commandments and do them. Though those of you who have been scattered were in the most remote part of the heavens, I will gather them from there and bring them to a place where I have chosen my name to dwell. That's the temple, right? They are your servants and your people, whom you redeemed by your great power, by your strong hand. O Lord, I beseech you, may your ear be attentive to the prayer of your servant and the prayer of your servants who delight and revere your name, and make your servant successful today, and grant him compassion before this man. And then Nehemiah ends by saying, now I was the cupbearer to the king. Okay, so that's Nehemiah chapter 1. I'm going to go ahead and read Ezra chapter 1, a bit of chapter 2, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. Okay? All right, so here we go. Let me turn back over to Ezra chapter 1. And again, I'm reading out of the New American Standard. Here we go. Ezra chapter 1. This is a short chapter. Now, in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, in order to fulfill the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah, the Lord stirred up in the spirit um, the the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, so that he sent a proclamation throughout all of his kingdom and also put it in writing, saying, "Thus says Cyrus, king of Persia, the Lord God of heaven has given me all the kingdoms of the earth and has appointed me to build him a house in Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Whoever there is among you of all his people, may his God be with him. Let him go up to Jerusalem, which is in Judah, and rebuild the house of the Lord, the God of Israel. He is the God who is in Jerusalem. Every survivor, whatever place he may be, let the men of that place support him with silver, gold, with goods and cattle, together with a freewill offering for the house of God, which is in Jerusalem." Starting in verse 5 here of Ezra chapter 1. Then the heads of fathers' households of Judah, Benjamin, the priests and Levites arose, even everyone whose spirit God had stirred to go up and rebuild the house of the Lord, which is in, guess, Jerusalem. That's right. All those about them all of those about them encouraged them with articles of silver, with gold, with goods, cattle, valuables, aside from what was given in the freewill offering. Also, King Cyrus brought out the articles of the house of the Lord, which Nebuchadnezzar had carried away from Jerusalem, and put in the house of his own gods. And Cyrus, king of Persia, had them brought out by the hand of Midriath, the treasurer, and he counted them out to Sheshbazzar, the prince of Judah. Now there was this number: 30 gold dishes, 1,000 silver dishes, 29 duplicates, 30 gold bowls, 410 silver bowls of a second kind, 1,000 other articles. All of the articles of gold, silver numbered 5,400. Sheshbazzar brought them up with the exiles who went from Babylon to Jerusalem. Okay, that's a lot of stuff there, right? A lot of words, and we'll talk about that here in a moment. But I want to just briefly touch on Ezra chapter 2. So Ezra chapter 2 is really all about the number of people that went from Babylon back to Jerusalem. Okay, the total number on down in Ezra chapter 2, verse 64 says, the whole assembly, I mean, everybody who left Babylon to come to Judah, numbered 42,360, plus thousands of servants, thousands of donkeys, horses, mules, so on and so forth. And then it talks about the money that was given to help rebuild: 61,000 gold drachmas, 5,000 silver minas, and 100 priestly garments. And that there were just a whole mess of people, a whole bunch of people that went from Babylon to Judah to rebuild the temple. Okay, so we got that out of the way. Not that out of the way, but we read that. That's very important. So now let's talk a little bit, and this is really why I wanted to do this video, because it's to explain a little bit of the context. So if you watch this, right, and then you hear my sermon on Sunday, whether both of them are by video or in person, the sermon in person, it will give you a little bit better understanding, because I don't have time to teach everything on Sunday morning. Okay, so understand a couple of things. Ezra and Nehemiah both cover the same period of time. They both served. Well, Nehemiah was a cupbearer to the king, and Ezra was a scribe and priest. Okay, and they both lived at the same time. They were contemporaries, is what it's called, and both living in Babylon. Okay, now about 70 years before Ezra and Nehemiah were on the scene, the country of Judah, which, remember, Israel and Judah used to be one country, united, right, called Israel. And then after Solomon passed away and his son took over, then the countries split into two. That's a whole nother different series of lessons. And Israel was eventually defeated in battle and taken off into captivity. Sometime later, the country of Judah was then defeated by the Babylonians, by King Nebuchadnezzar, right? Of the Daniel, in the book of Daniel, the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego story. We all know that. That's Babylon. Defeated Judah in battle, and boom, most of the Jewish people that lived in Judah were now exiles in Babylon. Okay. 70 years goes by, kings change, and the new king, Cyrus, okay, or Cyrus, also his name was Artaxerxes. He was the son of King Xerxes, okay? Now, this king was different. He was not a godly man, but he had a more gentle disposition towards the Jews. Okay. And so when in Nehemiah chapter 2, and we're not going to read that today, but we'll see in the future that when the king inquires of Nehemiah, say, hey, he looked downcast. Why? Nehemiah explains to him why he's downcast, because in chapter 1, these two men came to him and said, hey, our hometown is in disarray. The temple is knocked down. The city walls are knocked down. The king had pity on him and then made a proclamation saying that the Jews that are in captivity are now allowed to go rebuild the city. Now, it's possible that Artaxerxes had other motives. Maybe he thought that this would bring him further wealth or whatever. But regardless, it says that God's spirit moved upon Artaxerxes. Okay. Now, remember, the title of this series is The New Exodus. And the reason it's that is because, much like in the book of Exodus, how Moses went to Pharaoh, right? And it said that God hardened Pharaoh's heart. Okay. Now compare that to what it says in Nehemiah, how Artaxerxes, the king, Cyrus, how it says that God's spirit moved on him and then caused him to release the people to go build the temple. Okay, there's a big difference between those. And although they're both stories of Jews leaving captivity to go, one into the promised land and the other one to rebuild the temple, there was a big difference between how that happened. You know, in Exodus, you have the 10 plagues, so on and so forth. But in the book of Nehemiah and Ezra, God's spirit moved on the king, and he was sympathetic with the Jewish people. So that's a little bit of information. Probably some things I won't cover on Sunday because it's more of a teaching, as it were. On Sunday, we're going to look at a timeline of the prophets in the Old Testament, the timeline of when Ezra and Nehemiah was written compared to some of the prophecies that we'll talk about, like in Jeremiah and Isaiah. It's all really, really good stuff. And I'm learning right along with all of you. My dad had actually done a study of Ezra and Nehemiah, and he sent it to me. It's been a big help for me. So anyway, so that's what I have for you this week. Okay. And I will tell you, it has been quite the process of actually doing this. I tried to record it at the church, and oh man, it was just a mess. So I just decided to come home and just do it on my own computer. But here it is. And of course, you can watch it anytime. You can watch it again. But I will have another one next Thursday. Okay, that will then talk about the verses that I will then discuss then that Sunday. All right. So I hope to see you on Sunday. If not, you can watch the broadcast. It will be put out there probably on Monday. God bless you. Have a great night, and hope to see you on Sunday. Bye bye.